What do you think? The first half comes to an end. Georgia leads 26-7, and kind of interesting. At the end of the first half, Jeannie Dale from CBS Sports was talking with Coach Kirby Smart. Coach Smart was talking to Xavier Trust at the end of the first half, and I don't know what was happening there, but Coach Smart was making a point that Xavier Coach Smart basically said, we have a mission and we have a team, and then we have me. And apparently, he had an issue with something Xavier Trust did. Well, what a first half for the University of Georgia. Florida started out hot, scored that first touchdown, and then the game was taken over by Georgia. Georgia looks like the number one team in the country. They're ahead 21-7. I don't know if you could have a better first half. I would have loved to have seen another touchdown tacked on by the University of Georgia and just put this thing completely out of reach for Florida. But Georgia's clicking right now offensively and defensively. So, what do you think here as we go to halftime? Quite a first half for the University of Georgia. Let me give you some halftime stats. Carson Beck, 10 of 16 passing, no interceptions. He passed for 139 yards and a touchdown in that first half. Dejon Edwards, just a beautiful first half of rushing the ball. He carried the ball 9 times for 66 yards in the first half and 2 touchdowns, his longest run of 20 yards. Kendall Milton had a pretty decent first half as well, carried the ball 5 times for 25 yards, and his longest run was 20 yards as well. Ladd McConkey, hello, Mr. Ladd. It's good to have you back. Ladd McConkey with 4 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown. The longest reception that Ladd had was 41 yards. And I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 different Bulldogs received a pass in the first half. Ladd had 4 receptions. The rest of the guys had 1 apiece. So Georgia looking very, very well in the first half. 26-7 is the halftime score. So what do you think about this? On the other side of the coin, the halftime stats for Florida, Graham Mertz, 11 of 16 for 98 yards and a touchdown, his longest reception or his longest throw for a reception, 29 yards. Eugene Wilson III had 6 receptions for 56 yards. Ricky Pearsall, the other wide receiver who, a very good wide receiver for the Gators, he had 2 receptions, 35 yards. And so Georgia, the first half, the Bulldogs look very much like the best team in the country. So looking pretty good for Georgia. So what do you think here as we take break at halftime? Georgia gets the ball first in the second half. You'd love to see Georgia just take the ball, take it down the field, score another touchdown, and just basically that would put the game out of reach, and unless something quirky would happen in the second half. So Georgia looks pretty good right now. You got to say, Carson Beck looking very good. The offense firing on all cylinders. The defense looking very good as well. That block punt, special teams doing well. So Georgia, an excellent first half for the number one team in the country. So what do you think here? Our prediction for this game was 31-17. But right now, Georgia winning, of course, 26-7. And on all phases, it looks like Georgia is hitting on all cylinders and looking very good. Now, some other scores around the country. Oregon is really taking it to Utah. Both of those teams have 1 loss apiece. And so whoever wins this game stays in the hunt for the college football playoff. For the college football playoffs, the team that loses with 2 losses, you would think pretty much is out of any hopes of being in the college football playoffs. Notre Dame is beating Pittsburgh 17-0 at the moment. The big score is Oklahoma going down to Kansas. Kansas beating Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming into that game 7-0, undefeated. the sixth ranked team in the country, and Kansas taking down Oklahoma in that game. And we're just checking some other scores at the moment. Again, Texas over BYU. North Carolina State is beating Clemson with just very few seconds left in that ball game. So it looks like North Carolina State will take down Clemson. Auburn sticking it to Mississippi State, 24-3. Um, and some of the other scores, Florida State beat Wake Forest 41-18. Kansas beat Oklahoma 38-33. Penn State beat Indiana 33-24. Let's see. Texas A&M beat South Carolina 30-17. And West Virginia beat UCF 41-28. So what do you think about this game, though? Steve, I agree with you. Go Dogs. Looking very, very, very good. And Stephen says, wow, and we agree with that. Again, a very good, strong first half for the University of Georgia. I got to tell you, Dejon Edwards, Dejon has gone through the ranks of this Georgia football team. He has really progressed in such a great way as a running back for the University of Georgia. And Dejon looks just so good in this game. Dejon has 9 rushes for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you would think in the second half, you're going to see a lot of Dejon Edwards and Kendall Milton and some of Dylan Bell as well, as Georgia, I'm sure, is going to begin to, try to run the ball. Now, Georgia obviously is going to continue to pass and try to have a balanced offense. But you got to think that, Georgia's now with this lead, Georgia's going to try to just run this thing pretty much down the Gators' throat. Denise says, go Dogs. Hey, what about that one-handed catch from Oscar Delp? I mean, did he ever channel Brock Bowers with the one-handed catch in the first half? Oscar has 1 reception, but he has blocked very well. The tight end position obviously is not only a position where you need to catch a pass and be a weapon as far as catching a pass is concerned, but also you're on the line, and there are times when you really need to deliver blocks to complement your running game and to have protection for your quarterback. Oscar Delp had an excellent first half as far as blocking is concerned, and that one-handed catch that just looked exactly like Brock Bowers. And Bowers, of course, is on the sideline and for the University of Georgia, which, by the way, that counts as against the players that Georgia can bring, to the game. I think it's 74 players, if I remember correctly, that a team can dress out. And the fact that Brock Bowers is on the sideline, though he's not going to play, still it counts as one of those 74. But that's how important he is, and he wants to be there for his teammates. So, Georgia, you can't ask for a better first half than what Georgia has produced for us in this game against Florida. And I don't know, Georgia gets the ball first in the second half. If Georgia can, score and go down the field, score, put a score up, put a touchdown up, then you got to say, okay, there's there's very little chance that Florida can come back in this game, not the way Georgia is playing. But for me, I would love to see a touchdown, and so I can relax. I'm never satisfied. And a lot of Georgia fans, we come from the Larry Munson school of we're never satisfied. No lead is ever too safe for us. And so I'd love to see Georgia get another touchdown. But I think Georgia is making a statement in this game. Florida came into this game, and Florida was, one of their players made some noise about, how Georgia's got to go through Florida and that kind of thing. Well, at the moment, Georgia is going through Florida pretty well. Brian, let the Florida crying begin. Yeah, bless their hearts. The Bulldogs have won, I think, 5 of the last 6 games in this series. And so if obviously Georgia wins today, they'll go 6 out of the last 7. We're not going to count our chickens before they hatch, but it looks pretty good for Georgia in this game. And so Georgia, if everything goes as planned, as we see it, and as we think it's going to happen, Georgia will go into that game next week against Missouri at 8-0, and Missouri will come into that game 7-1 and ranked, in the top 20 in the AP poll. And that'll be a 3:30 game next Saturday. Not looking ahead, and we don't want to look ahead. You never know in college football, but it looks pretty good for Georgia now. So these games, these next 4 games, can really determine a lot for Georgia. If Georgia can take care of Florida today, and then Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, you know, can we three-peat? I mean, seriously. Brendan says Carson needs to get his deep ball accuracy better. Yeah, he did miss, didn't he? I think he did kind of miss on a couple of those deep throws. He, especially the one he had to Ladd McConkey, in which he just really Ladd had separation from the defender, and the pass did go not enough air under it. It looked like not enough air under it. Other than that, I think if you had a complaint, with Carson in the first half, you wish he could have maybe put a little bit more air under some of those long throws. But hey, can you in a rivalry game against a motivated team, and that's what we wanted. We wanted Georgia to come out and take command of this game. Georgia has the superior talent right now. Georgia has the superior talent, and you wanted them to come out and take control of this game, and they've done that. And Florida went down, scored that first touchdown, and I was thinking, oh boy, here we go, exactly what I didn't want to see. But then Georgia took control of the game, and they have to maintain, control of this game. A lot of people were saying, this was going to be a close and tight game. And you never know. It might turn out to be a close and tight game, but I don't think so. But I'm sold on Carson Beck now. I got to tell you, officially, as I sit here today, I am sold on Carson Beck as the quarterback for Georgia. I agree that his deep ball accuracy needs to be a tad better, a little better, with putting some air under the ball and some of those long passes. I'm officially at this moment sold on Carson Beck as being a quarterback that can take Georgia to where Georgia wants to be again. I mean, seriously. The offensive line for Georgia is playing fantastic. Those guys are pushing Florida around and giving protection to Carson. The offensive line playing fantastic. The defensive line, the defensive line and the linebackers, and basically all of the defense for Georgia is just playing very, very well. Except for the first possession for Florida, this was almost a perfect first half for the University of Georgia. Stephen says, will he get Georgia there? I assume Carson taking Georgia there. I don't know. It's so hard to win a national championship. Not to be a name dropper, but I did have a conversation recently with David Pollock. And David and I have kind of developed a relationship mainly about not stuff having to do with football. But we talked football, and I talked with him, and I asked him, I said, 2 back-to-back national championships. I mean, I know teams have done that before, but how hard is that? And he said, you wouldn't believe how hard it is. You get in the playoffs and you're playing very good football teams. And the edge of difference between these football teams that you play, like Georgia, Ohio State, or Georgia and some of these other teams, he said that there's such a fine line between these teams. You got to have a good scheme. You got to have luck. You got to have all this stuff together to win back-to-back national championships, especially in this day of parity. The parity we have in college football really is an amazing thing. Now, can Georgia do it again? In our dreams, yes, Georgia can do it again. But I think, as we see this happening and what's going on in the field for Georgia, you got to think our dreams may come true, to be honest with you. I've watched a lot of college football, try to evaluate a lot of college football teams, And I got to tell you, Georgia looks just as good as anybody out there. People point at Ohio State, but Georgia looks just as good as Ohio State, just as good as Michigan. Georgia is there. Georgia is there. The recruiting shows. Oh my goodness, the recruiting shows. So, so here we go with the Georgia. Raymond says third quarter is always our quarter. Yeah, I'd love to see Georgia just take that ball. Hey, how about an 8-minute drive? That'd be cool to start the third quarter. Just to balance it out, some passes and some running. Now, I'd take a 30-second drive, with a long touchdown. But an 8-minute drive really would be cool. Go down, score a touchdown, suck the life out of the stadium as far as the Gators are concerned, and take care of business. So I would take that. But we're going to see once again just to run over these stats, and we'll try to refresh them here. We get this from the NCAA. Again, Carson Beck, very good first half, 10 of 16, 139 yards. That's good for a half. That's very good for a half. And if he matches that in the second half, it would be all right. I'd love to see Carson get 300 yards rushing. Dejon Edwards, he's so good. And Gary Danielson, for whatever you think about Gary Danielson, a lot of people, just not really in tune with Gary Danielson, but he did make a good point. It's hard to get a big hit on Dejon Edwards. It's hard to hit him solid. He's slippery, he's slick, he can move, he can wiggle, he can jiggle, he can go here and there in short order. But just a wonderful first half, 9 rushes for 66 yards. Again, Lad McConkey, 4 receptions, 74 yards, and Marcus Rosemary, Jack Saint, Dylan Bell, Dejon Edwards, Ra Thomas, Oscar Depp, and Dominic Levitt, all of them having 1 reception apiece. So Georgia just, really, really doing well. And in this game, about what we were hoping, about what it was, what I was hoping. And of course, we're never satisfied and we want more. So, what can you say about this first half other than Georgia? Let's keep it up. Let's keep it going. Get this second half done. Get this win, get home, recuperate tomorrow. Have a light practice on Monday. Get at it on Tuesday. Get that game plan in for Missouri. Another big game. This time it will be in Athens next Saturday. Let's get this thing done. Raymond says he believes Ladd's going to get the ball more often this quarter. I think so. I think you'll see. I think you'll see a lot of short passes. A lot of the quick slants and maybe some of the short passes out into the flats and that kind of thing. I think you'll see the short passing game on display, especially in that first drive, and then some running mixed in. I think Georgia will want to use up some clock. So, on the other side, how do you evaluate Florida? They're 5-2. Billy Napier is a good football coach. He was a good football coach before he came to Florida. He's a good football coach. He has a wonderful pedigree. His dad was a great football coach. And Billy Napier is a high quality character guy. And so I think if Florida will be patient with Billy Napier, he's gonna do very well at Florida. Here's the thing I always think about. When your football program gets down, it takes a long time to get back up. I think about Tennessee and how Tennessee fired their coach and they dipped down. It took a long time, and Tennessee's still not back there. And look at Florida. When your football team goes down, gets down, recruiting, is not what it ought to be. When you have a change in coaching and your football team gets down, it takes a long time. Usually, it takes a long time to get back. Look at Florida State, and the troubles that they've had. Your program is down. It takes a long time to get back up, and I think Kirby Smart. We should Georgia should be so thankful for Kirby Smart and what he's done at Georgia. And you can't ever envision Kirby leaving, of course, you know, but man, let's make sure that there he never has a thought about that, for sure. And Florida, eventually they're going to build it back up. It's too good of a university, and too good of a football program. They'll get it back there. And so here we go. Delp looks good. Yeah, I mean, Brock. Brock Bowers is such a good football player. He's such a talent. He might, if Georgia goes to the playoffs, you'll see Brock Bowers back on the field this year. The tightrope surgery is a surgery that it hasn't it doesn't have from what I understand, an unlimited amount of time to recover. It does take time to recover, but it's not like you're going to be out forever. With that kind of surgery, you can recover from it. It's a major surgery, but I think if Georgia gets into the playoffs, you're going to see Brock Bowers back on the field for Georgia. Now, if Georgia doesn't make the playoffs and they go to a bowl game, that may be a different kind of story. But we'll have to wait and see. We're banking on Georgia making the playoffs. So, guys, we're going to get out of here. We're going to watch the second half. We'll be back with you at the end of the game. Go get them, Dogs. Let's wrap this thing up and get it over with. Go, Dogs, and we'll be back with you